Hey, guys, how are you today? My guest today is JJ DiGeronimo, and I think we're going to experience something like that. This woman, I'm super excited to get to know further, and I believe she's going to extend a lot of wisdom and different thinking into our minds and our hearts. And I really hope that you'll just listen in and get to know her. Her bio is a woman in the tech industry turned award-winning author, shares energy practices and empowering strategies that you guys can use to create more impact in your life. She has all these new levels of awarenesses that she's had through her own struggles as an entrepreneur. And what it says here is that she shares a more spiritual side of her life that undeniably strengthens her mission to empower women at work and in life. Conditioned to look outward, JJ juggles a variety of external validations, such as titles, salaries, relationships, intermingled with self-doubt, negative self-talk, and demanding schedules. These same pressures lead many women to ask, am I enough? What am I doing? Is this it? And I think men as well. With over 20 years in the tech industry, she is no stranger to navigating the twists and turns of moving from entry-level positions into a leadership role. And now she's focusing on unleashing leadership and insights from within. She is a light worker, which we're going to ask her about so she can explain that further to us. She's a businesswoman and author, and her mission is to create a bridge for people to tap into tools, practices, and mindsets that can help them to bypass or to obliterate probably the obstructions to the things that are keeping them held back. She's looking to help you guys, and this is what I think is going to happen for you, is that she's here to help you guys have more meaningful connections, more moments of joy in your life, and experience more fulfilling activities. I mean, all of us need that. And I think the whole world is crying out for just more. You know, there's a spiritual pull, I think, on most of us. Her new book is called Seeking: 74 Key Findings to Raise Your Energy, Sidestep Your Self-Doubts, and Align with Your Life's Work. That right there, that title says it all. So be prepared to find ways to raise your energy, to sidestep experiences of self-doubt, and to align yourself with life work. I'm really excited to welcome and really, really glean her wisdom, JJ DiGeronimo. I have, as you all know, because I gave this beautiful blurb about you prior to the show. This is JJ. Now, this, I have to find out about your last name. Tell us your last name.
DiGeronimo.
DiGeronimo. Is that a real last name?
That is a real last name. And my maiden name is Borzilleri. So I tried to go for a Jones or a Smith, but I ended up 10 letters for 10 letters.
But think about it. Don't you think it's significant? We'll talk about that after. But Geronimo? I mean, come on. Anyhow, so this wonderful woman is here to really enlighten us and to help us. What I'm really looking forward to, just to say to you, I feel like I can learn a lot about silencing self-doubt. I can learn a lot about all of the things that you offer women everywhere. So I would just love to find out from you where you came from and how, because I saw that you were in the tech industry for like 20 years or something like that, and that this was a transformational process. So I would love to hear what brought you here to where you are, and where are you?
Well, that's an interesting question because I have been working so much on being in the present moment, which is not where I came from, right? I have a computer science degree. I ended up in Silicon Valley having a marvelous career, but I had these whispers from within that kept nagging me to do something else. And even though I had set a trajectory for myself to hit that executive level that looked in sight, I was really dealing with all of this inner turmoil. And for my 40th birthday, over a decade ago, I ended up booking a solo trip to Sedona because I felt like I needed some wisdom beyond what I was finding in corporate America, beyond what I was reading. And I went there to just kind of sort myself out because for many women, we're doing what's expected of us, but we have these inner whispers or this inner knowing that wants to see the light of day. And oftentimes it really can get loud and obnoxious. And unless you start to kind of follow that, or at least start to seek kind of the meaning behind it.
You know, there is no coincidence that you are here. This is incredible because I do solo trips, but beside for that reason, but just recently, I have a people who work for me, obviously, and one of the people who works for me, we've been working on for months that whisper from within. Is that what you called it? What did you call that?
That is not only what I called it out loud, but that is a chapter title, The Whisper
Oh,
from
yes.
Within.
So she
Yeah.
came to me and she said she feels this like this calling out, and but there's too much of her mind is involved in what we're doing here. So I just gave her the freedom to go. Just go. Find if you come back, you come back. If you don't, you don't. But like find what it is. And because we operate like that, she's leaving and she's gonna go. And
Mhm.
it's so beautiful that we can like let one another do that. So tell us what you discovered when you went to Sedona.
I did go to Sedona, and that was like one of my first sort of commitments to myself to really explore. Now, my mom started taking me to Lilydale when I was 12 years old, which is a small community outside of Buffalo, New York, where a lot of mediums congregate. So Sedona wasn't that far-fetched for me. Many of my mom, my aunts, my grandmothers turned to alternative wisdom throughout my life. So going to Sedona was a natural place to go for that alternative wisdom. But I did that, say in 2013. I did not leave my day job for another 18 months. And I had already been paving the path since 2008. That's when I started a women's group in 2010 and 11. Published my first book and I was already out, in the world showing up sort of in a new way. And so I'm not encouraging anybody to hear a whisper and like jump ship. Like you really need to sort of pave your path for yourself so that you can take care of all the yeses you have in your life.
I love that. So let me ask you, where did you describe? I'm in New York. What is it called? Lilydon?
Lilydale.
Lilydale.
Yes, it is about 40 minutes south of Buffalo.
Love it. Okay. So when there's so many different things that you talk about, but one of them is like this overcoming self-doubt. So there's
Mm.
like two ways I want to go is because I really, really believe in being in the present moment. That's where everything is. I mean, we're the only two people in the world right now.
Mhm.
So I would love for you to talk about both of those things and how being in the present moment, I think that's a solution to most things, right? So you see the connection to those two things, right? Like
I do.
self-doubt, yeah.
Yeah, and I will say I've done a lot of seeking. Oh, and that's kind of why I named my third book Seeking, because there's no destination. It's just like, hey, this is what I've learned thus far that I can share with you. I'm a I believe in human design and birth charts and enneagrams. And so I use every tool I can to better learn about who I am. And through all of my seeking, I've really had a visualization that we all come from this unified light, this beautiful unified light. And each of us has a teardrop of that light inside us. And when we come down or we're born on the planet, we are engulfed that light in our body. And our body comes with our ego and the energy of our ego to protect us, to help guide us. But what many of us learn is that our ego overprotects us and often over accommodates to protect us in ways that honestly hinder our life's work. And so much of our life is about figuring out how to compartmentalize that ego so the light of your soul can shine through.
How would you tell someone to compartmentalize their ego? I love this.
Well, I would say to compartmentalize your ego, you first have to hear your ego.
Yeah.
And to hear your ego, you have to be in the present moment. but most of us are not taught to be in the present moment. And in fact, when I was first taught to attend a mindfulness class, like a therapist of mine said, you really need to go to mindfulness. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really not going to do that. That sounds ridiculous. And after a couple sessions, she's like, JJ, if you do not learn how to be mindful, you will never find the joy in your life. And she went even as far to say, do not come back unless you go to a mindfulness class.
Love
And,
that.
I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn. I'm type A. I'm like, please don't pressure me to do something so ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that was an angel on earth in a lot of ways, because that was the next level of my awakening. And had I not listened to her, even though she did sort of like push or force me to go, I would not be here right now. And I believe messages come through people, and sometimes they're louder than others. And I feel like we often have so many clues every day if we're paying attention.
Yes. Yes. And it's like, Abraham, Abraham Hicks
Hicks.
about like the breadcrumbs that they're,
Yes.
and just like to open up your eyes and see like the driftwood, like what is there? Because, it's so funny. I so resonate with what you're describing because there's a quote from you. You describe that people have all these gifts. I don't know if you said dreams, but inventions, like all this stuff inside of us, it's lying dormant, it's buried. And I found it fascinating because I'm obsessed, weirdly, probably not weirdly, with the concept of an apple seed. I just talk about it all the time. I talk about it in my own book. I just like, I don't know, probably people are probably sick of hearing me say it, but it's fascinating to me. But it's like what you're saying about the the teardrop, the drop of light inside of us. Like there's so much information and stuff inside of that little seed, and it becomes this magnificent tree that then gives apples to people. It's just, and that's like us, right?
It
And I
is like us, and that apple seed is not worrying about what the peach tree is doing.
no, God, no. They don't even know there's a peach tree,
That's
probably.
right. That's a beautiful analogy you write out in your book. And I feel like for many of us, we get so caught up on all the trees in the orchard and the lawnmower and how many times it rained and, whatever it is. And I
Till
feel
I
like
grow.
many of us have all the wisdom and knowing within. And really, our life's work is about getting inside and working from within.
100%. It's so interesting. And I don't know if this is me being like super hyper rebellious, but I do feel that a bit. And it doesn't match with love. But what I do feel is that I feel like almost like I want to shout it from the rooftops, JJ, that like I feel like we've been sold a bill of goods. A pathway to mediocrity, a pathway to, to just be just average and not find ourselves. And it's so concerning to me. In every major institution I see it, even in psychology. That's why we do everything differently here. The school system, everything. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like it's kind of like people are rising up all over to tell this truth. And I have to say another thing, JJ. This is my other thing that kind of pisses me off, but I'm happy because I feel like we're doing this. This is what pissed me off. I feel like somehow society has showcased anyone doing this, aware of this, with this heightened awareness as woo-woo, and it's been sensationalized as kind of out there, and it's science and it's truth. It's quantum physics, for God's sakes, like it's real. So I feel like we're coming up and telling people this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's perfectly orchestrated. So I do believe that the energy of the planet has been highly, highly driven by the masculine energy for hundreds of centuries here. And we are shifting from the masculine to the feminine energy in a way that we're going to be balancing both energies. We're moving from the fifth sun to the sixth sun. And that we know when we come down, this is going to be one of our hardest missions as our soul embarks on the human life. And it is perfectly orchestrated to be difficult to find that light within. There's way too many distractions. There's way too much going on, not only in our heads, but around us. And that the enlightened ones, the ones that are here to make the shift, that be part of the shift, are finding ways to tap into their inner light so they can not only illuminate the path for themselves, but illuminate the path for others.
Yeah. How do you, when you were describing, how would you tell someone who's listening, who's not, thinking in this way? How would you explain to them the beginning processes or what you did? What points you?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. You are unsettled with how life is unfolding for you right now. So
Mhm.
you're asking questions like, is this it? What else is there? Why am I so unsettled? Oftentimes, those are clear indicators that there is more work for you to do, that your life's work will be emerging, but that you need to work to shift from working from your head down into your heart, or some people call your soul. And so, working on that shift is really the work that I've been doing now with women, is helping them understand the steps to take to really dust off that light, to recognize when that light is speaking or wants to shine brighter, and the messages that are coming to you through other people, through songs, through book titles, through invitations.
Yes. I love that. Dust off your light. Our lights have gotten caked on.
Yes.
Yes, and you know what? You you talk about there's so many things that I want to ask you, and I'm going in five directions. But one, you described, your experience with all these externals, these schedules, and demands, the yeses, right? The chatter that's going on. And this is let me just say this other part of it. I believe, and I'm pretty sure you feel this way, that what we're seeing in our life is a message. What we're feeling in our life is a message that is pointing to what we've been focused on, what we've been feeling, what we've been thinking. So it's like this is what we've brought into our life. Do you know what I mean by that? So this is evidence to me, if I keep finding myself in these stressful situations over and over again that I'm repeating over and over again, wow, that's a message that tells me that this is what I'm broadcasting, right? And
That's
that
exactly
now is
right.
my opportunity to create a different broadcast, right? And is this part of like what you do? Is that
Yeah, very, very, very similar.
yeah.
So very similar broadcasting, right? So radio broadcasting, right? One to many. So you can think of yourself as a radio station. I have been called your frequency, and you have to self-evaluate. Are you at 94.1? Are you at 98.2? Are you at 102.5? Like, what frequency? Because FM radio is frequency modulation. So what frequency do you want to show up in the world? Because your frequency will determine the experience you're having and the people you're interacting with.
That is like everything in all wrapped up in a little bow that you just said. Because think about what you just said. Well, I'm sure you do. So all the time. But the radio, so like it's like, okay, there's like head banging music in my car and I don't want it anymore. I'm gonna change the station. I'm going to change the frequency. And it's that, right? I mean, we can shift into another frequency. How would you tell people to do that?
Yeah, so there's very specific things I've had to do to shift my frequency.
Yeah.
So the first thing I've had to do is really inventory where I'm at. And I inventory three specific things. One, I inventory how I talk to myself, because how I talk to myself is what drives my decision. So if I'm telling myself every time I want to do something new or try something again or expand where I am, if my first level of conversation is, you're crazy, who the hell do you think you are? There's no way you can do that. That is going to impact your decision, because that's the conversation you're having with yourself. And as we said before, mindfulness helps you understand the stories or conversations you have on repeat. So mining your internal conversation and identifying if it's working for you. 9 times out of 10, it's not. The second thing is, how do you communicate with other people? Like, who do you go to talk to on a regular basis? And what type of frequency do they have? What are the conversations they have? What are you talking about? And how do you feel when you end that conversation? And then the third thing is, what do you watch and listen to? Are you watching news all day long? Are you watching shows that everyone's killing each other? Or are you feeding your soul and mind with abundance, gratitude, messaging that is connecting us to one another and creating a more robust conversation of elevation? And those are the three things I really had to shift for me to raise my own frequency.
I'll tell you something. You are a very, very good communicator.
Thank you.
Just had to say that on the side. It's really true. Like you really break things down in such a really, really easy way to understand that. The when you're looking, you had I saw also that you were describing that the relationships that we all have, that also there's reflective energy. So what I have discovered in my own life is that I'll come into a room all excited and I'll introduce myself and I'll start talking to the person and blah blah, and I'll be like all high energy, and then they'll be giving back this high energy. And what I discovered is that when I didn't bring the high energy, then there was a revelation to the energy that was actually going to be present. Do
Yeah.
you understand what I mean? So uh,
Yeah.
I would
That's
love to hear
Katie
what you have to say.
Byron's.
Say it again.
Yeah. So Byron Katie's work is that everything that's happening outside you is happening inside you.
Mm. Yeah. So like when you describe like someone's like mirroring back your energy, can you explain it to people who wouldn't would haven't experienced that yet or know what that means?
Yes, yeah. So everything comes down to energy, everything. And so if you want to move through life with a little skip in your step, you have to start skipping.
Yes, girl.
Right? You're not
Yes.
just gonna walk by someone who's skipping and then start skipping, like, you've gotta start skipping. And I think for many of us, we are looking externally to determine how we feel about ourselves. And
Yes.
so many of us use external metrics. Who am I dating? Who am I married to? What job do I have? What do I drive? Where do I work out? Where do I eat? Any external metric you could possibly think of. Many of us really harness our own self-worth based on external metrics. And I know this all too well because when I did shift from my corporate life in Silicon Valley to my own business and working on my second book, I lost all my like external metrics which determine my self-worth. And so months after I left my job, I was depleted. I was depressed. I was questioning myself, my self-worth, my work, because I didn't realize that everything I liked about myself at the time came from what I was able to produce, do, and achieve at work. And so when all of that was taken away, I didn't even know who I was or why I valued myself.
That's such a excellent, excellent point. And I think that I see a lot of women of all ages who that happens in relationships.
Yes.
Yeah, that whatever whoever they're dating or married to or whatever is the determining factor of their value,
Mm.
but they don't know it,
Oh, and I'm still working on it. I mean, that was almost a decade ago, and I'm still working. I went to a shaman yesterday, and we just worked on self-love. And it's just a continuous process. So I am not a martyr saying I'm there by any stretch of the imagination, but I have worked with many energy practitioners and light workers to help remind me of my power within, help me connect myself to the power within so that I can do my life's work. And I think for many of us, we try to do it alone,
Yeah.
and as you mentioned before, like society makes these woo-woo people seem to be sort of on the outskirts of society, but in reality, it's ancient wisdom that women have carried for centuries, and that working with other women to help remember why you're here and what your life's work is a beautiful way to connect with women on a different level.
It is so true. And I love your humility. And it's just authenticity, really. There's so much power there. That's where we grow from, right? Being able to see the thing. I was just making videos about just, people can see externally, that, that I appear to be successful, all these things like these externals. And I've been like making these little mini videos about reminders, like reminders that every day, like, it's almost like I need reminders myself. And it doesn't matter where you are in the societal, whatever, norm, whatever. It's really like, because we're always growing. I mean, if we're not growing, we're dying. It's such a catchphrase, but I feel like being able to look at ourselves and tell other people, oh, because self-doubt, I mean, I would say there's probably not a day that I don't skip through a path of self-doubt that I have to then find my way out of. I mean, I don't think I'm going to have to think, I don't think there is a day.
That's so refreshing because I feel like women look at us sometimes that we've done all these things and they're like, oh, they've got it figured out. No, we don't. We don't have it figured out. But what we do have figured out is how to step around that energy. Maybe
Yes.
not initially.
Mhm.
I have so many stories that I put in this book about all the times like where my confidence has walked out the back door. Like I'm getting ready to get on stage. I'm the second keynote speaker, and the first one is so incredible. She's got, I mean, but she's telling a story about her mother and this whole transformation and how her mother then transcended and just she had not a dry eye in the room. And at that moment, I started like reworking my entire presentation. So much so that by the time I stood up on stage, I had no idea what to say. That not only did I like sidestep myself, I sidestepped everyone there that could have benefited from my message. But at the time, I didn't think it was good enough. And it wasn't nearly as good as the speaker before me. And in that process of such self doubt, I just hijacked myself and everybody in the room.
I completely relate. I'm asked to go speak at this thing like in June, like this national mental health freaking thing. I'm like, I don't want to go. Like, there's nothing inside of me that wants to go. And and I think that I don't think I know because I know I do it. That if I see somebody who's great or whatever, I see myself as so different. But I know that that's not true because I think the farther we go along, like maybe the more success we have, the more we are talking to people who are on another level or whatever, and they're just as afraid. They
Yeah.
have just as much, and I think opening that up to everyone makes us all, I mean, doesn't that make us all safer, and it opens up doors of like opportunity? Like anybody can do this.
Yes, I think so too. And, my son is in my eighth house of birth charts, which I love birth charts because it tells you where all the planets were when you were born. And the sun in my eighth house means I like to talk about difficult shit. Like I do. And I love talking about fear and perfectionism and self doubt. And I like to normalize it because if we all feel like we're all dealing with that, but we're still pushing through it, it's not a big deal anymore. Who cares? Like, yes, we're going to screw up. We're not going to make it. We're going to fall down. We're going to get back up. It doesn't matter. Like, you should strive and drive towards what is calling you, even if your mind and ego is telling you no way.
You know what? You got to tell me what house I'm in because I don't know what it is. I want to find out. I bet you I'm in the same house as you. But you know what is amazing? That because I've been driven to tell the truth like my whole life, like to tell people, no, I feel that way too, because to normalize it. Yes, that is so important. Because I've always felt so separate and shamed and different, that I'm feeling these things. But okay, so you really got me with the house thing because I'm like, oh wait, should I tell my birthday? Like, should I do it on here?
Yes. No, no. Do it on the side. Send me your birthday
I'll
anytime,
definitely
and
do it on the side.
I'll
Yes.
tell you because it's one of those things that's been a can opener for me. Like, so my son is in my eighth house, which is all about like law and terms and difficult things no one wants to talk about that are just a pain in the neck. But then my moon is in the ninth house, which is Sagittarius based. So I love to explore and learn and write and try things. So it's like a great combination of sort of what I'm doing in the world, and it's given me more confidence in my work.
Yeah, that's really cool. I definitely, my daughter helps me with that. She, tells me things, but and I really, really see the truth in it. I never used to believe in it because of the things I believed from my childhood and everything, but I see so much value in it. When you're describing, God, there's so many things I want to ask you. You're describing like, um, okay, so now here we are. we understand, we see these issues that pop up for us. Now, I would love to hear your take on this because this is how I experience it. So I recognize something I don't like, or I recognize that I have self-doubt, or whatever it is, or I feel irritable, whatever it is. I try to take that and see every moment as an opportunity to pivot me toward this greater expansion. So being mindful, staying with head, heart, feet in the same spot and saying, oh, that's there, instead of being afraid of it. Then I say, okay, this is here for me. So I'm not going to focus on it. What is it teaching me to go? What's the next step? Because the bad, whatever it is, I've had a lot of trauma in my life. I'm not trying to be victimy or anything, but what I've learned through repetition of negative things, not repetition that, oh, I must be a victim. Oh, there's something wrong with me. To, wow, this is my, every time something happens, I'm going to transform a little more and a little more, so would love to hear what you think or anything about that.
Well, I think our life is perfectly orchestrated for the work that we're supposed to do. And I work with a lot of energy practitioners, and I call them light workers because they're bringing more light to the planet through themselves, their own work, and how they help others. And many of them have been through very, very, very traumatic upbringings. I mean, it's just insanity. And not knowing you much beyond your book and talking, I would say that a lot of your trauma has prepared you for the work that you're doing now, to have true empathy and connection, not only to your clients, but also the team that works for you, that is really helping shift so many people for good. And you wouldn't be able to do that if you hadn't gone through some of it yourself.
It's absolutely fact. And I so much wanted to, I know that like early on in life when people have really bad things, it's hard for them to understand it because they don't see, because they haven't had enough experience with the trauma to know that there's a great outcome that comes from it. It's incredible. I'm curious, there's something that you I read about you, and I don't want to say it the wrong way, so I'm going to look at it. Oh, here it is. It's that mothers come with soul lessons. I'm curious about that because I'm a mother and I have a mother. Well, I don't have her anymore, but I'm just curious what you feel about that.
Well, I'll say that everybody that is very close to you, the people that are in your intimate circle, maybe they're not there anymore, but they were there at one point, often carry a lesson for you. And I chose to, I mean, I talk about different relationships, but I really chose to focus on mothers, 3 chapters, because I feel like mothers and daughters, there's such an energy. No matter what woman I've talked to in my life, they have either they have some kind of very, very emotion filled reaction to their mother, good, bad, ugly, anywhere in between. And I feel like I've worked through my emotion with my mother. And I talk a lot about this in my book, but only as a tool for you to explore the relationship you have with your mother. Because a lot of the work that we're doing with our souls is to heal the ancestral line of energy from our mothers to our grandmothers, great grandmothers, and our daughters. And that we have a thread that carries through all of us. And so understanding the interdependencies and emotions that are attached to those relationships can give you great insight to the lessons that they are here to teach you.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that, like with epigenetics, I was thinking about this, that, you know, prior to conception, that the mom and the dad, whatever they're experiencing, whatever's happening inside of them is, passed on to the egg and the sperm to prepare the baby for the environment that they would be entering into, which is just incredible. So if a mom's in a lot of trauma or whatever, and or in turmoil, and sharing your blood flow with your baby, like there's so much information in there. It's incredible. And you can see, I can see how I have carried some of my mother's chaotic things that I've really spent a lot of my life working on not having, and which actually the working on it is the actual thing that's actually created great things, like more like being better at things than I would have if I didn't have that that issue, right?
That's
So
beautiful. And I think that's exactly how we need to think about those things is like it's forcing us to do the work.
it is, or really just to suffer and watch Netflix, I guess, and eat stuff.
I'm like, "Yee."
No, I'm not knocking on Netflix, I swear.
Oh my gosh. I'm reading a book right now, funny enough, it's called The Origin of You. Have you heard of this book? The author is in New York City. So I
What is
wonder,
sounds so familiar, but
Vienna? Yeah, so The Origin of You, that's what that looks like,
yeah.
and it's all about taking the traumas of your childhood and how it shows up in your future relationships and how you have to work through that. So it's giving me another level of insight, like, I feel like books come to me at certain times, and I was listening to this book, and then I did this energy session yesterday, which was all about self-love, but I had to go back to my childhood and understand why I didn't feel the connection I wanted to feel, how that's showing up in my marriage, and how that impacts how I love myself. So it's very intertwined, these lessons, and they show up in all different ways.
You know, what you just said, and you're so funny because you say it so, like, so smoothly and intertwined, and I'm just like, "Wait, did I just get that whole information, like, in just such a clear way?" I don't do that, but I'm gonna be like you when I grow up. But anyhow, so the thing that you were just describing with locating the trauma and then seeing how it's showing up in our life and in relationships, and then, I mean, to me, a marriage or a relationship is serves to clean out the things that, have harmed us or whatever. It's friction. But I don't mean that the marriage has to be an adversarial thing. That's not what I mean by that. But I mean that any difficulty we come across, that can be something that's going to advance us. And if both people know that, right?
Yeah, most people extend a lesson from their childhood in their first major relationship. So, and a lot of people end up marrying them. So, I talk about how my mom extended her, situation from her childhood into her marriage and how other people do that because, again, it's a lesson. And if you go through life thinking everything is happening for you rather than to you, it gives you the approach to say, okay, why? Why is this happening for me? What is the lesson I need to learn? And lessons come through situations and people. So you are in a specific situation right now or with a set of people that are here to teach you your next lesson of awakening.
You know what? Honestly, that right there, I don't know where it came from, but from the time I was very little, I didn't have that exact language, but I always, every bad situation, I thought about how come this is here? What is it for? I don't know why I knew that. I mean, I probably do know why I knew it, but I knew it. And I believed in God with everything inside of me for no reason. Went to church alone at 7 years old. So to meet a couple of friends who went alone too. So the thing I saw each situation, and people, I almost looked insensitive because I'd be like, okay, what does that mean and what am I going to do about it? Like, I really felt that way.
Mhm.
I don't think I learned it at home. So I just think that's fascinating. And I think that that one sentence that you say, that if everybody in the moment of tragedy or in hardship or whatever it is, they just stopped and they said, okay, this is horrifying. This hurts so much or whatever. However, I know I'm going to get something major. I think the harder the situation, sometimes the greater the blessing. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's hard to swallow at times, I have to say, like, it just being like, I've talked to so many people in my life and I've had so many different family members, and it's like, but you see the breadcrumb, as you mentioned earlier, kind of build up. Like, if you think of an abusive relationship, that you've chosen and you're in an abusive relationship, a lot of times it extends from your childhood. A lot of times it's because it is really based on how you feel about yourself, and it gets progressively worse. And as Oprah would say, it comes as a whisper, but eventually it's going to hit you with a 2x4. So,
yeah,
like, catching it at the whisper is going to be a lot easier of a lesson,
yeah.
especially as an adult. You can't control as much as a child, but as the adult that you are now, catching it near the whisper would be could be a little bit easier. So asking yourself, why is this happening for me? Why is this happening for me? And realizing that it is just part of a lesson you're moving through.
I love what you're saying because I think, younger women or people hearing this, it can be super helpful because I know that I've watched that I'm more awakened from the traumas. I'm more awakened to the precursors, to like you say, the whispers, right? So it's from, you know, and like even like Abraham Hicks would say things like that the sign that, it's almost like I think of it like, how you play the game like, oh, you're getting warmer, oh, you're getting colder, oh, you're really hot. Like if you're trying to find something, it's almost like that's how I think of it when I'm like trying to find my highest, my path. So it's like and she describes that like, which that as you're feeling, your like inner guidance is telling you, you can hear it. Like I know when someone asks me to do something and it kind of sounds fun and I say yes, and something doesn't feel right. I know I'm not supposed to go. I very often go. I'm just going to be honest. But I do realize that that's always there. And I think the older we get, or maybe not the older, but the more aware, the more in the moment, we see it, we hear it. It's so valuable. You save so much time by slowing down and being here now. You save so much time. I think time slows down when we do that. Well, it doesn't exist actually. What do you think?
I agree. It's just all, I'm not sure this whole experience as a human, it is a lot of work. It's a
Holy
lot of work.
shit. Thank
I
you.
don't want to undermine anyone's journey because
Yeah.
some of them are tumultuous and it sucks. I still don't understand some of these journeys that so many of these children have, but I will tell you, as you become an adult, using those for good and figuring it out. And I'm a big believer in connecting with energy practitioners. So whether you use someone that does maybe past life regression or does some sort of energy healing or Reiki or astrocartography, I've done TRE. So there's just so many things you can do is trauma release exercises. There's so many people that can help you that maybe your family never introduced you to, maybe some of your organized gatherings or religion have told you not to do. But if you're hearing this, I believe that you are meant to hear that there are other people to help you through your life's work. And finding and asking for people for referrals is a great way to start.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you tell us about your book, Seeking?
Yes. So,
Tell us.
Seeking, I'm super excited about this book. This is my third book, and many authors will say that's like your book. Your third book is when you really tell the story you want to tell. And I would say that it's no different. I've visited over probably 80 energy practitioners, and I include so many of them in the book in the appendix. I've also created a community, Together We Seek, down online, where I interview energy practitioners I've worked with to really take the guesswork out of what are these practices. Most of the people are women and most of them have been in corporate America but now are transitioning and doing other work to add more light to the planet. And so Seeking for me has really been the journey of sidestepping my self-doubt, raising my frequency and aligning to my life's work. And as you can tell, I'm very like, I serve things up in digestible pieces with a lot of questions, open-ended questions, so that you can do the work you need to do to raise your frequency and align with your life's work.
I love that. Could you give us a couple of questions that like
Oh,
from
I would
your
love
book?
to. Let me
Yeah,
open it up. I would love
yeah.
to.
Open your book.
So, hmm, this is a question that we kind of covered. It's just kind of funny. What lesson or lessons do you have on repeat?
Oh, yeah, you go, girl.
What drives most of your decisions?
Perfect.
And what decisions do you make based on money?
Yeah.
And and it comes with an 84-page workbook. So it gives you plenty of time to figure out who you are and why you are in the point of your life you're in right now, but also creates path and avenues for you to sort of catapult to your next lesson.
Yeah, and the second part of your title, I think, is healing in and of itself. Unless you want to read it, that second part of the title is a big deal to me. 74 key findings to raise your energy, sidestep your self-doubts, which you said, and align with your life's work. Like, to me, if we could raise our energy, sidestep our self-doubts, and align with our life's work, I mean, what's left? I'm not sure, but
Uh,
it's amazing. It's a great title. I'm really looking forward to like learning from it and growing from it because it sounds fantastic, and I hear how fantastic you are. But since you brought up money, I'm going to ask you to say this other thing that I love that you talk about is about money and the frequency of money. And I always say money's just a concept and it's a symbol and it speaks, so tell us what you believe about money.
Well, I grew up on church cheese to give you any indicator about money. So it was a big thing in my life early on because we had none.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Silicon Valley and I got into a startup that was a high flyer and I became a millionaire and lost it all because I didn't have money, I didn't know how to manage money. And it has been a huge piece of my life lesson, money. And I love Lynn Twist. She's one of my favorite authors, The Soul of Money. Um, and money
Oh,
has been some of the reasons I haven't pursued things because I don't give myself permission to use money in effective ways, which help me raise my frequency. And so I've had to do a lot of life work around money. And I know a lot of women have to do this.
yeah.
So it's funny because I host retreats now and I have to set pricing and do that. And I can't tell you how many people will call me and say, well, I just don't have the money, or I just don't, my husband doesn't want me to spend the money doing that. And I can appreciate all of that because I've been through all of that. And I still work on my relationship with money. But the idea is that money's a piece of paper. We give the energy to it. And we can be using money as a tool to help us manifest what is next, or we can be hoarding money out of fear, and like really analyzing where you are on the spectrum with money is very insightful.
I love the topic of money, and I think it's interesting how what a hot topic it is in either direction, where you can be seen negatively just for having a conversation about money, that there's something wrong with having the conversation. One of the things that I've done, and probably I've heard other people do too, is that I would look at my money, each dollar as a soldier, and where am I sending it? And then I would actually like pray over, every time I'm going to give a tip, and I would pray over my exact money that it could never be used for evil, that no access could be on my money. It could only be used to advance love on earth.
I'm going to start doing that. That
It's
is
so
beautiful.
powerful.
So beautiful.
And I believe like with literally, I have so many doubts, but when I pray that and I say that, I believe, I feel the power. I believe that whatever that bill is, even if it's digital, I believe that it cannot have access to evil. There's no evil can touch it. And I feel like if we did that, money goes all over the place. If we did that just with our money, if everybody who's listening did that, we could stop a lot of evil things.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that today. That every
Yes.
time I buy things or every
Yep.
time I give a tip, I'm
Yep.
going to say a prayer when I'm doing that transaction that this money is used for good to advance the farmers or advance goodwill or give people education. So it doesn't have to be specific, but giving goodwill to the journey of that money.
Yes, and whoever's hands it touches, and I would say that whoever's hands it touches, that it would always bring them blessing and change in their life. Another thing I used to do is not related to this, but I'd say any person that I have the privilege to my physical hands to just touch, like, hey, shake or whatever, that their life would be blessed, like their socks would be blown
Mhm.
off, like that my life would be used in that way, which is,
Mm.
and it's like I feel like we have a lot of like I have a friend who her name's Tracy Dews. She's all about water, and basically she says pray over your water because the
Yes.
molecules
Yes, I read that
love.
book.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
hydrate. Yes.
Yes. I read the book about the frequency of water and how if you say negative words to the water or, or if you say positive words, how it changes the molecular makeup of the water. So I am wholehearted believer in that.
Yeah, and I do think also even just what we're eating too, like when you're eating in bitterness or, like it's incredible. Like, and you know what? It speaks to what you're talking about that I believe I have behind me, you can't see it, but it's about, Dorothy, that when Glinda says, you had the power within you all along, my dear. And you were describing that we have this. I don't think we realize the incredible divinity, what God has given us. And I could answer, like, I grew up and I'm a person of faith. I believe in God, and it has kind of halted and created pockets of fear in me, but also because it's like we're not allowed to say that we have power. It's like blasphemy. But greater things than I've done, you're going to do, is what Jesus says, right? So I'm like, yes. But I feel like anything that limits, anything that divides, anything that just like takes us away from love and brings us to fear, how I just can't see that that's God.
No, I think the teardrop of God is God. I think the
Love
teardrop within
that.
us is God. And so, if people like, I am God, I share love and light. That's why I'm here. We are extensions of God. And what more do we need to know?
Exactly. Do we have to know every damn stinking thing?
No,
No, and be
no.
scared to death that we're gonna die and that all bad things are gonna happen? You know what I think about, like and there's so many things that point to that when it says, like, I am the vine, you are the branches. And if you remain in me and I will remain in you, like, basically, if we remain, just the word remain. I have it on a tattoo. It says one thing remains. It's love. Like, one thing remains. So if we remain in God, God in us, how is that that's like, I'm not cutting myself off from the life force.
No, I am the life force. We are the life force. We are connected, and there's so much beyond this human experience.
Okay, I know we have to end. I have to respect your time, but I still have 3 minutes of your glory. And what I want to ask, because this has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, but this is an experience I have that I think is related to what we're talking about. My husband, I lost my husband 2 years ago. Tragedy, and it was horrifying. But what that was a very pivotal thing for me, obviously. But one of the things that happened was I was called. It was insanity. Not insanity, it's God. Because I believed in God anyhow.
Mm.
Called outside constantly, constantly. I did nothing but go outside. I needed to be with the flowers, the trees. I would literally walk, and when I tell you, the people think I'm psychotic. I don't care if you think I'm psychotic. I the trees, and I could cry. I heard them. I felt them comforting me. If I walked down a street, they were like saying, "We're with you." Like, I could feel it. It was so powerful. I don't say this, because I'm a closet tree hugger. Like, I feel them. Yes.
I went to a session yesterday, and that is what came through for me.
Tell me.
Is go out into nature and listen to what they're telling you. And the fact that you're saying this right now is so, of course, it's serendipitous, but I think it's on no accident. And I truly, wholeheartedly believe you that nature talks to you and your husband works through you.
I curse so much more now that he's gone. I think I've taken on his cursing ministry. But you know what you're saying about that, and I will say this one thing, just in light of what you heard about go out in nature. I had a friend and a worship leader, and this is against, like, maybe what people might think in the church, but this guy's amazing. So he describes going out into the wilderness, and amazing musician, this guy, and listening. And I mean, I weep when I remember him sharing it. And he said that if you just sit in the wilderness, there is literally a symphony of music happening.
Yeah.
It's every little crackle. It's all, but if he said that we tend to just hear the one little sound wave or this, but he allowed it to all, and he said it turned into this like God ordained experience of a symphony, just engulfing him and being all around him. And he was changed as a musician. So, yeah, there's so much we don't know. And then we make fun of one another because we think we know better than one another. None of us
Well,
know
I would
anything.
say, yeah, keep doing it. Keep going outside, keep listening. Just be out there, be one with nature, and I feel like everything you need to know will come through you.
Yes. My next guest is a man who healed himself in the forest,
Mhm,
cancer. That's what it is. I adore you. I
mm.
am so grateful to have met you. I want to thank you so much for being on this show. All the ways to find you are going to be in the show notes, but if you could just tell, the listeners anything that you want to say before we close, where they can find you, it would be great for them to hear it instead of read it.
Well, I want to thank you, Allison, and I look forward to working with you again. I think there are no accidents for you and I, and for anyone
Yes.
listening in. And if you are still with us right now, I really encourage you to make the time to tap into who you really are and use light workers and energy practitioners if needed. And if you're open to help you, you can find me on all platforms as JJ DiGeronimo, or if you're looking for light workers and energy practitioners that I work with, you can join me inside Together We Seek online.
Love it. You're so concise. It's a wrap.